We've been speaking in Torah Nun Vav about Malchus, about using your influence in a positive way, influencing people. Either you're a Sari Alafim, Sari Meos, Sari Chamishim, Sari Asaros, you have very big level of influence or lesser levels. But no matter who you are, you at least have to be what's called Sher B'Beisai, to guide your family, to guide your home, your wife, your kids. And on the side of evil, the Malchus of Rishus, Haman himself couldn't even guide his family. So he plays a big game, but really he has nothing. And then we spoke about that Malchus, that in order to influence properly, you need to be careful, because you have a lot of responsibility when you influence and when you lead. And that's why the Gemara said, because if a person's not using his influence properly, the Gemara in Pesachim, Pei Zayin, and Beis says, Harabonis mekaveres is baaleh, that leadership can bury the leader if he's not using his leadership properly. We compared a leader to a tzeifa, to a watchman of a kingdom. And if there's intruders to the kingdom, and the watchman was goofing off, and he didn't warn the inhabitants of the kingdom, then he's going to be to blame. Which means anybody who's under that person's auspices and leadership, you have to help them. And therefore there's a big responsibility. But how do you do that? How do you help them? You need das. You need das. But das is something it says that you get from long years. When you're old, you get das. Like it says, older people know things. But how does he ever get old? Because the Malchus is burying him, because he's not doing his job, because he doesn't know how to guide the people that are under his auspices. So he's got to be old, but he's getting buried because he's not helping them properly. So he said there's another way to get das. It's called Torah. Torah. That's why we're all up. The crack of dawn today, learning Torah. Because we want to be able to activate our Malchus and use it properly. And use it to build Hashem, the Malchus in the world. And then Reb Nachman said this is Mordechai at Tzaddik. Oh, this is just so good. It's all like delicious, every single word here. And when a person has das, we said that he gets parnasa easily. He doesn't have to work so hard. You don't need any of these 90-hour work weeks. You can spend more time with your kids, with your wife, more time learning, more time in Avodas Hashem. Unless you truly feel that your work is Avodas Hashem. And this is Shavuos, this is the mikveh. And this is the man, which is what we spoke about last time. The man is the mikveh of the nun. When you eat the man, you're going into the mikveh of the nun shari bina. And then we said, but I thought the man, Chazal say we ate it for 40 years. For the first 30 days we had matzah. So we said the matzah is the man. Because when we were in Mitzrayim, we didn't have the das. Our das was constricted. When we got out of Mitzrayim, our das opened up and we could see things. That's how we got the Torah. And then we said all of this is what's called a machloikis l'shem shemayim. We said there's one thing called peace, and we said that when Mashiach comes, there's going to be great peace in the world. There's going to be such an amazing peace that the lion and the lamb will lie together, the wolf and the lamb, everyone's going to be together. And when I was saying this to my kids last Shabbos, so my 5-year-old girl, she was so sweet. Like we were talking about, like when Mashiach comes, there's going to be so much peace for the whole world. Like the lion, like a mamish lion. I said, the lions usually eat like lambs? So they're like, yeah. So in the lion and the lamb, they're going to be together. So she said, like they're going to like hug. They're going to be hugging. It's so nice, just the mind of like a small child. They see that it's going to be a lion, like squeezing, like hugging, and just like together, like sweet. Because there's going to be an amazing peace. But that's not a peace that's just like everything is nice, everything is fine. The highest peace is that you have opposites coexist. Meaning you could still be a lion and you could still be a lamb, Every single person could be their own thing, but we find the place where we meet. It's not like we're all going to become robots and the same thing. It's going to be peace because we'll all be the same. We're going to be so different and diverse, but we're going to see a common place all together. So we said that's much higher than just peace. That's called a machlokas l'shem shemayim. That's called peace that comes when everybody has their own opinion, which is really what Yeshiva is all about. Come, say anything you want here. Be willing to defend it, though. That's a much higher peace, because it means I don't have to conform to something. We're all just fighting for truth, which means that you have to be very intellectually honest enough that if you feel that somebody else is making a more relevant point and a better point, that you'll acquiesce to their opinion, because it makes more sense, because you're just fighting for truth. But it means the other guy's going to do the same thing. If you're making a much better point, then he's also going to acquiesce to what you're saying. It's making more sense. That's a much higher level of peace than we just all say the same thing. Is that we can all have our opinions, but you have to be willing to defend it and be willing to admit that you're wrong. Which is exactly what goes on Twitter every day. After a few very good points are made, the other person will say, you know what, you really made a good point. I think I'm going to completely change my worldview based on everything that you're presenting. That's exactly what happens, right? When Mashiach comes, it will. Which makes sense, that it should be. If someone really presents something in a very positive and clear and sensible way, that if you're looking for truth, you'll say, you know what? My whole approach was wrong. I'm willing to re-examine it. That's one of the things you notice by Gedolei Ador, and one of the things that's famous from some of the greatest shiurim from all over the world, Torah classes by great, great leaders, that they had a whole approach carved out in learning a Gemara, let's say. The Yeshiva speaks about this, but Rav Nachum, Rav Nachum was like humongous in learning. I'm saying like larger than life. And I remember the Rashi would say there was a certain time that one of the Talmidim made a point and said, like, Rebbe, what do you say about this? And Rav Nachum said, based on what you just presented, I have to change my entire, you're right, everything that I just said now, I can't build up this binyan, it's called in learning, I can't build this building up of building a approach to learning based on the way that I just presented it, because you've shown me something that contradicts it. I'm chayzer by, I'm willing to re-look at the entire approach. Rav Asher is famous, one of my great rabbis who was in his shir who made such a comment, and Rav Asher completely said, we have to completely change the approach to learning. I mean, based on this sugya. So, that's a tremendous level of intellectual honesty. That's called a machlokas l'shem shemayim. We said that was represented by Moshe. And Moshe is right, Rosh Tevis. What's the acronym of Moshe? Machlokas Shammai Hillel. Because that is the epitome of machlokas l'shem shemayim. Okay, so if you have your look at the Maran, you could look at Ois Tes. And now we're going to talk about health. Thank you, Yaakov, for bringing mamish an entire kit here. I feel like we could go into the Outback for a long time with that. Okay, if I need any of the props, so I'll let you know. So says the Rebbe, "V'lavoy lamachloikes l'shem shemayim," which is what we want. We want a machloikes l'shem shemayim. We want everyone to have an opinion. We love when people have their opinions here. That's one of the things about being in yeshiva, is the most encouraging thing is just say something. Say what you think. Tell us really what you think about the matter. What we don't want is somebody just not talking. I'm saying if you really have, it's okay to be silent also. But we want to hear what you think. We want to know what you think. That's your inner world. Share that with us. We're all in this pursuit of truth together. How do you see it? Present it to us. So to get to the machlokes l'shem shamayim, Rav Nachman is going to say something. It's going to take us some time to explain what he means. Sometimes this is what is classic in learning the Kutei Moharan, is he'll make a comment in the first line, and then you'll have to go through the Torah to see what he means. So he says, if you want to get to a machlokes l'shem shamayim, then you know what you need to do? Sarich lezakech ulataris shamayim. You have to purify the heavens. Oh, everybody knows, like that was an obvious answer. To purify the heavens. If you want to get to a machlokes l'shem shamayim, you have to purify the heavens. Now, why would the heavens be associated with some type of a... Remember, if we want a machlokes l'shem shamayim, what we're talking about is we don't want a machlokes that's shaloi l'shem shamayim. So it must be that purifying the heavens has something to do with some type of a machlokes that's maybe not quite it. Or that which is teaching me about getting to a machlokes l'shem shamayim. So why are the heavens associated with a machlokes l'shem shamayim? Or at least getting to a machlokes l'shem shamayim? Because on day one, we know that the heavens were very fluid. What happened on day two of creation? Mavdil ben mayim l'mayim. God separated the heavens, the upper waters and the lower waters. There's already now machlokes. There's upper waters, there's lower waters. And there's a bit of dispute between the upper waters and the lower waters. There's a separation. Right? Shemayim also means sham mayim. Over there is water. Shemayim. But here it's upper waters, lower waters. It's interesting, that was also on day two. On day one, there's no machlokes. Because it's one. Yom echad. On day two, there's already two. There's already two. What's the song of the day for today? If you're a Sephardi, you also say it along with Baruch Nafshi. What's the song of the day? Oh, Ethan's Pamish. On this. Somebody who is famously associated with machlokes. Korah. That's right. So we see on day two, which is machlokes, there's two. The heavens are splitting. Upper waters, lower waters. And we know that the lower waters are crying. They just want to get back up to the upper waters. By the way, you and I represent the lower waters. Just so you know that. We're trying to climb our way back up to the upper waters. So Koirach is identified with machlokes, and therefore we see on day two that there's machlokes, and therefore there's something about, in order to get to a machlokes l'shem shamayim, that we need to purify the heavens. That it shouldn't be shaloi b'bechinas, it should not be in the category of albish shamayim kaderus, that I cloak the heavens in darkness. Darkness means that there's some miscommunication. That's what it means when something is dark. There's not good communication. There's not a relationship being formed. It's dark. Okay, so this is classic Rabbi Nachman right now. You ready for this? Oh, so how do you do that? How do you purify the Shemayim? So says Rabbi Nachman, he'll take something oftentimes being very abstract and then bring it into something like very physical, very quickly. And you're like, interesting. It's so abstract, it's so like with my body and with my human experience at the same time. And that's one of the geniuses of Reb Nachman, is you start to see how the most abstract things are like right here in front of you. Like he's just showing them to you in your body. It takes a kind of refinement of learning Reb Nachman, but you see where he takes you. Oh, so you know what you need to do that? Hi ali de anocha be'emes. In order to purify the heavens, you need to learn how to sigh. A good anocha and a good sigh. You see, he knew about Wim Hof before Wim Hof did. You'll see where this is going to go. Now, why? So it says Reb Nachman, Ki yesh belev ruach hadoifek. Inside the heart, there's the pulse of life. In your heart, there's the beating pulse of life. There's the spirit, the ruach that's dofek. Kol doidi doifek pischali. There's this beating life force in your heart. Shehi metchilas hatoilada, which comes from the beginning of birth. You're out in the world, the heart is beating on its own. In the womb, it's beating at about 6 weeks. 6 weeks, a person can already see a heartbeat on an ultrasound. And what does this beat do? What is this beating causing? And it's carrying with it, as the blood is moving and the heart is beating the blood through the circulatory system, it's carrying with it all the lechos, all the fluids, kol adamim, all the blood, the kol amitzos, and all the juices, all the bodily juices are getting pumped through the body. Shekarin zaften. V'haruach hadoifek hazeh, and this life force, this beating energy, hoilich v'noikesh b'kol ha'ivarim, goes and is like pulsing, is like beating through the entire body. V'ali de halichosai, and what, because it's moving, v'nishuvoi bahem, and it's like blowing through the body. Hu menaneya, what's the benefit of having this moving, beating, live coursing of the blood through the body? Is it's menane, it's moving, umenashe, blowing, menapates, and like beating oisa mena ipush. It prevents the body from becoming stale. Ipush is also like from becoming like moldy and musty. Because there's movement and there's action in the body, it prevents the body from getting rotten. Hashem yirachem. Shelo yisapshu v'lo yiskalku. It shouldn't rot and it shouldn't disintegrate and degenerate. Kamay haruach hamenashe bayam. Like Reb Nachman says, just like when you have a wind that blows the waters of a location. So what happens when you blow the waters of a certain body of water? When the waters are moving, when the waters they have a ruach blowing through them, so we all know that the waters stay fresh. It's moving water. But what happens when you see stale, stagnant waters? What happens to those very waters when they're non-moving waters?
Unsafe to drink, bacteria and filth.
Correct. Unsafe to drink. Generally they're going to be like getting like algae action, or I don't mean the blue-green good stuff. I mean some of the spirulinas. I mean some of the other funky varieties. It gets like buggy and like disease. If you have like this pond that's just still, doesn't look so good. That's getting green. But when the water is fresh, when it's moving, there's life. It doesn't stale over. So our bodies are like a great body of water. If there's healthy movement from the heart and the pulse is coursing through our bodies, so then the body will remain fresh, will not become stale. Therefore, the pulse inside of us is very, very important. The pulse is moving, the pulse is working. When the water blows over, when the wind blows over a body of water, it's like turning the water. It's keeping it fresh. It's bringing waves to the water. So the water doesn't rot. In this case, spoil or not become safe for drinking. Now, where is the main place where the body needs to have healthy circulation, if you will? So of course we need it in it's gonna be pumping through the body. Rav Nachman's gonna say a chiddush now. Where's the place where we see that the pulse is like moving and it needs to be accessed there? It needs to be moving there. It needs to be smoothing out that particular area. The hands. That's why we always take our pulse in the hands. That's the ikr spot of taking the pulse. Is in the hands. And Rav Nachman says, the ikr nishav aruach hadoifek be'ayodayim. That's the place that you see that the blowing of the pulse is like active in the yodayim. Why is that? Okay, this is what we're going to go into today. Why is that? Why do the hands need that extra pulse? Why do they need to be so... Why does there need to be such a smoothing over, i.e. a blowing of the winds of the pulse? And why there particularly? In other words, if we have this body of water, and there's different, let's say, bodies of water. Let's say we're all one big body of water, but we're different like tributaries. If anyone's ever been to Algonquin Park, that's where I grew up as a kid. Algonquin Park is a place in somewhere called Ontario, Canada. Nobody's here from the 6th? Algonquin is amazing, gorgeous. And if you go further north, Quetico, mamish, beautiful. Like just lakes upon as far as the eye can see. And some of the lakes, if you can't get to one, you take your canoe, you portage it, you put it on your head, you just start walking. This is like my childhood. Just lakes as far, if you see a map of it, it's like, wow. So we're like an Algonquin Park. So there's different parts of water inside of us. So why is it that the hands, they need extra movement? That you find that the heartbeat is like located there? There must be some reason for that. In Torah, there's a reason for everything. If Hashem designed something in some way, that the human experience is that the ikr pulse comes from the hands, there has to be something to that. That you locate it there. Nothing's by chance. So why is it there? So Rav Nachman's going to explain, because the hands actually mean something. The hands signify something very, very important in halacha, in Torah. We have a concept called Yadayim Askani Yisem. That the hands move places. The hands could end up in funny places. Like the next thing you know, it's just like you're picking your ear. Sometimes you want to just realize, like, where are my hands right now? This guy's like, in his armpit. This one's like scratching his head. This one's like touching his shoe or something. Where are my hands right now? So in Torah law, it says that hands, why do we wash our hands before we eat bread? Why do we wash our hands? Because Yadayim Askani Yishein. Because it says that the hands move to places without you even realizing it. Okay, let's just take a step back. There's a category of people called Amaratzim. Amaratza mean people that are sadly not so learned in Torah. Then there's a category called Chaverim. Chaverim mean people who are scholars. One of the defining features of a Chaver is it says that he's aware of where his hands are. See, he's always aware of where his hands are. Okay, why is that significant? Because if a person touched something that's impure, so the Torah says you have to wash your hands. But what if he doesn't know? Let's say you want to eat bread. Your hands have to be pure. Wash your hands. So let's say you don't know. I don't know. Did I touch something? I don't know. I know I washed my hands when I woke up, but now it's like, I don't know. Like, it's been a few hours. Like, I don't know. Like, you think I know where my hands are? I don't know. So does he have to wash his hands? Yes. Why does he have to wash his hands? He doesn't know. Maybe they're not. Maybe they didn't touch anything impure. He doesn't know. Does he have to wash his hands? The answer is yes. Because the rule of Yadayim Askanias. Hands like go places. Next thing you know, he's picking his nose. Next thing you know, he's touching his shoe. He touched the floor. He picked up a pencil or something. He wasn't careful. He touched the floor.
Is that why we trim our nails into the toilet for all the impurities should be flushed away?
So yes, we do trim our nails and we don't throw them on the floor because nails are impure also. Cutting fingernails, you have to wash your hands also. And we either flush them down the toilet or bury them or throw them away. Some people even burn them. But that's not for now. That's for big tzaddikim do stuff like that. Simple Jews like myself, we just throw them out. Yeah, but don't throw them on the floor, that's for sure not. So, Yadayim Askani Yisheim. The hands are always moving. If the hands are always moving, then we assume, if they're always moving, that they probably touched an impure place. Because they're always moving. A Chaver, though, does he have to wash his hands? No, because his hands are never Stam Yadayim. They never get to a place that they're just like, I don't know what they are. He always knows where his hands are at all times. He always knows. That's why you'll see certain like big tzaddikim, don't do this, but they'll walk around like this. You've seen that before? They're protecting literally their hands. Whatever, they know how to get it like all the way in. Because they don't want their hands to just stam go places. I don't mean all the time. I mean when they have to drink some tea, they don't do it like in a funny way, like they take their hand out. I'm just saying stam, when you're just not, okay? All of this sugya is that the Torah teaches us that your hands go in funny places and it's a human experience. People notice, they don't even know where their hands are. So the next thing they know, they're scratching their head, they're picking a booger, excuse me for saying, picking their ear. By the way, the Torah says that the ear, guk, and the nose have the same halachic status. It's not so good. I'm sorry, but the Torah talks about this in halacha, especially if it's like wet. There might be a difference in halacha of a dry booger, I'm sorry, but the Torah goes into all this, and a wet one, as far as halachically. It's true. And by the way, that's also a human experience, that you know there's a difference. Right? One's more gross. And therefore the Torah delineates between those two types of things. Also the ear. What's the main point here? If the hand touches something which is impure, it has to wash. For Am Aretz, somebody who's not careful with his hands, he generally, if he wants to eat, he's going to have to wash because he doesn't know where his hands went. And they probably touched something impure. But a Chaver, who's always aware of where his hands are, he doesn't have to wash. Because he knows where his hands are. So why, back to us, why is the pulse in the hands? The pulse is in the hands because the hands go all sorts of places. And maybe they go to impure places. If they go to impure places, they can make the body get stale. They can make the body get, God forbid, calcified and decrepit spiritually. So there's a need to have the pulse moving through the hands to blow the pulse and to blow energy towards the hand. That's why you find it in the hand. You can really tell how well a person's doing by feeling their pulse. Real doctors know how to do this. Nachman's about to say it. Real doctors know how to do it. This is like really where it's at. It's getting the pulse. There was somebody in Toronto that I went to at one point, a very well-respected Chinese medical doctor. And I first, the intake was with his son. And his son in China was like, these people could sew arms back on. But here, they came to Canada, they didn't have the same status, but those who knew who they were. So he said, the son, who was like 25 years old, so he said, so then he did the intake with me, he spoke great English, and then he introduced me to his father. So his father was like, didn't really know any English, and you could tell he would like look at you like, and he just felt my pulse, and he was feeling from many different spots in the pulse. This is usually 4 fingers that they'll use on the pulse line. And each one of the fingers could have many feelings that they're getting. Meaning, from each finger there's different pressures, so you're at least getting 8 different indications. Because each one of these, you could push a little bit, you could push harder, deeper, you're going to get a different response of where the pulse is at. So you're getting at least, and people who really know, you can get everything. Everything's in the pulse. He felt my pulse. That was it. He wrote me like a whole prescription, like 1,000 different things. He said, the son told me about his father, that what his father knows is basically nothing. Remember, the son could sew arms back on. What his father knows is like a drop in the bucket compared to what his grandfather knows, who opened up like dozens of hospitals and schools all over China. That tens of thousands of people came to his funeral. And then what he knew was like nothing compared to what his father knew. You have to appreciate, these are all the gifts that Avram Avinu gave to the East. This amazing system. So there's a lot there. There's also a bunch of charlatans in the world, people that are fakos, but there's really good people. So no, there's real medicine in the Chinese herbs. And the pulse. This is a lost art, the pulse. Picking up on the chachma of understanding what's happening in a person's pulse. So much is indicated in the pulse. So Rav Nachman's saying, why does it have to be? Because the yadayim are askanias, because the hands move, and what we're explaining is they move to impure places. Like I'm saying, a person picking the nose and stuff. Sorry to mention that example so many times. Therefore, they need extra pulse, they need extra wind, they need extra movement, purifying the hands, for the hands to stay pure. You always want to keep your hands very, very pure. Also, as far as cutting nails, you want to keep the nails short. It's a very important thing to keep the nails short, and that there's not guk underneath the nails.
Why keep them short?
Because it says spiritually that if there's guk and stuff underneath the nails, it's like a resting place for the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara does not like clean things. It likes dirty things.
Fungus.
Yeah, it likes dirty places. So you want to keep things clean. And the guk under the nails is like classic. In Kabbalah, it's like a classic spot to clean. Yes?
Well, Tzaddik shakes someone's hand. You don't know what that person's hand has been, maybe, how it's been used. You always assume
so it's not going to transfer because we don't have, we don't have paraduma, so we're still, tameh at certain levels, but some, and also with shrotzim or whatever, avatuma, rishon latuma, all the different dargas of tumah. Spiritually, some tzaddikim are careful, like it's hard for them to shake if someone's very impure. So you'll notice sometimes a tzaddik will put his hands over somebody's head as opposed to like touching them directly. Don't feel like bad. Some tzaddikim, it's just they're very sensitive. They'll pick up on the whole energy of the person super quick. Not so much that it's a transfer of tumah per se, but it's that the feeling. But because they love people so much, they want to be there for them. They're sensitive. They're sensitive. There's certain people they can't. Like, if they shake someone's hand, they'll see their whole life. They'll see their affairs. They'll see. It's like shachas becomes like a very different experience after they shake. Let's say if someone's hand who is doing affairs, so they want to help that person. They love people. It's just they're sensitive. It's just the way it is. It's tzaddikim. So the hands are a very, very, very big topic, especially in Kabbalah. That's why I noticed tzaddikim make a big deal with keeping their hands pure. They make a big deal around like netilas yadayim. They have these like, big cups, often not like buckets for netilas yadayim. Or they're always washing, not always, not OCD, but like in certain key moments, they'll wash their hands because they're a chaver. By the way, if you're a chaver, then you're the opposite of OCD. Because you know exactly when you need to wash your hands and when exactly you don't need to wash your hands. So it's never a thing like, should I not? I don't know. Like, I better wash. No. You know exactly when yes and when no. Because you're aware of where your hands go. So it's exactly because the hands are askanias and they go to different places. So Rav Nachman's teaches the pulse needs to be there. It needs to move and keep things from getting stale there. Because tumah makes things stale. That's the calcification. And you need the coursing and the liveliness of the hands to move through the hands. Valkain hadokter, says Rav Nachman, when the doctor puts his hands on the pulse, yoidea kol inyan achoyle. Rav Nachman's saying he knows everything about the sick person. Kol inyan achoyle. You see that? See, Rav Nachman understood what the pulse is all about and doing diagnostics from the pulse. The pulse is very powerful. Why? That's where you see like an opening of indication of what the pulse is doing through the body. There's a reason why it's opening by the hands, is that the hands are busy and they need to be smoothed over. They need healing. The hands need healing.
What do you mean smoothed over?
In the same way we said, like the pulse is like a wind blowing over a water, that it keeps it moving. That's what it means. It needs to be kind of blown, smooth, coursed through, so that it's not stagnant. Who Kanir la'el. V'tzank sheyelech zeh haruach hadoifek tenu mesuderes ketikuna v'sidura. And through the pulse keeps things moving properly through the body. One of the most important things in well-being is like, what's your heart rate? Like, how's the pulse doing? You want to make sure like the pulse is beseder. You know, in Torah we think about everything. Like, when was the last time you were like really like thinking about the seder of your pulse? So then says Rav Nachman, because there's a force in the world, okay, this will take us to the end, that tries to make that the pulse doesn't beat so geschmack. That's called the nachash. That's called the snake. And this snake, she'al yoda ba'atzvus ruach. What's the snake all about? Depression. The snake tries to depress the pulse from working properly, from beating with the geschmack. It makes everything like, and that's why depression, like, everything starts getting like stagnant. Yosef.
What about when you wrap your tefillin really, really tight and it like sort of cuts off some circulation? It's not like you're doing a bad thing, or it's not like a bad thing's taken away from your pulse or your blood flowing.
Sometimes what happens when you put a little bit of pressure and then you open it up, it pumps like stark. You're not mamish cutting it off.
Okay.
There's no,
You can still feel a pulse in my head.
Yeah, for sure.
Cap refill.
Yeah, I mean, as it should be. Don't tie it that tight. It's tight a little bit, and those are all right acupressure points. It should be tight, but not like there's no cutting off of circulation. And like we just mentioned, that sometimes when you put a little bit of pressure and then you open, it's like creates a surge of pulse, a surge of energy. So the Nachash tries to break and slow down the pulse and make it like weak. It weakens the pulse. It depresses the pulse. So the pulse is not gesund and stark, the pulse gets weak. How does he do that? He gets you so sunken into a world of all you do is the 39 malachas. That's the nachash. He makes your life just going to work. And over time that starts to depress a person because he's drying up his spiritual vitality. And just like, and how's work? Like, another day, another dollar. Getting by. Could be better. And even if a person doesn't feel it immediately, at a certain point there's some crisis, of like an existential crisis. Like, what am I doing? Even if I'm invigorated in the stock trade, whatever, the stock market, let's say, but at a certain point, a person wakes up like, what's it all for? Where is this all going? Why am I here? So the Nachash, and that has a way of like depressing, making problems, God forbid, with the pulse and the heart.
You said the sigh is the solution. Sometimes we can sigh out of like depression.
That's right. So the sigh, we'll see, this is all from the sigh. The sigh starts to regulate. It relaxes you. It's part of tshuva. It's like, Hashem. That's the sigh. The sigh is like a return to Hashem. It's a re-regulation, which is a Wim Hof thing. It's like the sigh is very associated with regulating pulse again, getting things back into Seder. Is he talking about Wim Hof here? Before he knew about it. The sigh is very, very deep part about getting the pulse and the whole circulatory system back on track. Whereas the Nachash is trying to depress it and make things get out of order and make the waters go stagnant. And that's Zumas HaNachash. That's the very impurity of the Nachash. As he makes the waters still, he puts his poison into the waters and he makes disease fester in the waters. Ali dezeba atzvus ruach. So now the pulse becomes weakened and not as vital. That's what I'm saying. It's not even just that you feel it's pumping. How is it pumping? You can tell the vitality of the pump. This is a big chachma, checking the pulse. Yes?
So I remember once reading in Anatomy of the Soul.
That is a great sefer.
That Rabbi Nachman would sigh until his arms went numb. And he would like reach like the state of ecstasy where he had like this dveikus. But I was wondering, as far as sighing and I guess using this in a spiritual way, what's a good practice to, I guess, utilize like sighing?
So right now, just learning about the concept, how it works. And then yes, like we mentioned, Wim Hof is a very powerful thing. But it has to go beyond just a physiological experience. It has to go into a tshuva experience. Is that this is regulating my body again, my parasympathetic nervous system, getting me now tapped in to you, God. Getting me tapped into you. Returning to you. When there's depression, the pulse does not beat properly, or there's irregularities in it. Lo aleinu. And then what happens when the pulse is not working properly? One of the indicating signs is that the body gets heavy. The limbs are like you're dragging your feet. The limbs are like, which is also a sign of depression. When the guy just like, I can't get out of bed. It's really something in the pulse. The pulse has become depressed. If the pulse was active, the person's limbs would be much lighter. Is that the pulse, something happened, needed the sigh, which is the tshuva. We're going to see that's going to purify the heavens, which is the machlokes l'shem shamayim. Which, like I mentioned, that's a whole journey we're on. Because the ruach is not beating, is not miyasha behem keseder. And then what happens? Dafka the yodayim gets to v'china v'yedei Moshe kvedim, and the hands of Moshe became heavy. Remember, this is when the battle against Amalek, and Yeshua was fighting, and Moshe Rabbeinu's hands were up, and when his hands were up, spiritually, it means the forces of evil were removed. But when the hands were depressed, when they weren't, so to speak, able to, so that meant that physically we were weakened. Ki ikar akfeidus b'ayodayim. That's why it says Moshe's hands were. Why didn't he say his knees or his torso was heavy? No, his hands were heavy. Because that's the ikar spot where the pulse is showing that there's a need to purify the yadayim askanias. That my hands should be moving properly in this world. They're not going to impure things. Staying in holy places. Shesham ikar aruach hadoifek. V'zeh b'chinas itzvon yodayim. Ki ikar mazika atzvus ruach la yodayim. That's where the impurity shows up in the hands. Goes into the hands. When the limbs get heavy, when the limbs get heavy, so the pulse weakens. And as the pulse weakens more, then and the limbs get even heavier. As the limbs are just getting heavier and heavier, the pulse is weakening. Then it's just getting weakened, and the body's getting heavier. It's weakening the pulse. Body heavier. Until the soul leaves the body. Because the body just became so heavy that the soul goes. But through sighing, he brings back the pulse. He's enlivening the pulse. He's like stirring it up again. He's beating the heart back in again. And he also gets out of his depression. That's why sometimes when you're just in a bad place and you just have a good sigh, it's almost like it's going to be okay. That anocha of it's going to be okay. Sometimes after a good cry, it's just that like one. It's very like soothing. It's like the wind just blowing over the water and just moving everything back into motion again. And that defeats the nachash. That brings life force and vitality back to us. And then he brings back life force to all the body. Befrat yodayim. She'al yedei mezakech es hashamayim ki hayodayim hem bechinas shamayim, shumayim. And he says shamayim is also two words, eish and mayim, which is the two hands. The right hand is mayim, that's chesed. The left hand is eish, that's gevura. by purifying the ruach in the hands, that's what it means to purify Shemayim. That's what Rav Nachman's talking about. That you're refining Shemayim, your right hand, your left hand, bringing back the healthy pulse. We should be zoicha, my dear friends, to have our pulse beating with great life force, with beating with the words of the living God, Divrei Elokim Chayim, and bring back the entire pulse of creation that we should know. That Chazal say that just like the world, the earth, is like our body, and our soul is like God who fills the world, fills this earth. We should bring back the soul, we should bring back the pulse of life into our bodies, and bring back the pulse of life, which is God, into all of creation once again. Be pulsing with the words of the living God. We should be Zeicha Mamish, to have a wonderful Chodesh Av, that Avinu Shebashamayim should reveal once and for all with the Binyan Beis HaMikdash b'mhera v'yameinu. Amen. Amen. Shum yeyu, shum yeveyu, shum yeyu, v'ava v'olam kla, Rabbeinu Shua v'kol gadai. Shum yeyu, shum yeyu, shum yeyu, v'ava v'olam kla, Yisrael Yedayna. Liyam b'simcha, liyam b'simcha davamim, b'sag edoyla, liyam b'simcha davamim. Good Chodesh.